All right, well, welcome back, everybody. Week 2 of our smoothies, soups, and salad series. That's a mouthful. Welcome back, Diva and Dudes at Home. Thanks for hopping on and joining us today. It is a chilly one. It's like less than 50 degrees out. What happened? So, lucky for us, we are making soup today. So, we have a delicious minestrone soup. Has anybody ever made this before? Yeah, it's a nice one. I picked it because it's one of my favorites. It's probably like one of the soups I first made when I was first learning how to cook way back in college, which was many, many moons ago. But it's an easy one and it has a lot of great things in it. So I thought that would be a nice one to start with for our soup section. We'll have another one next week, which is lentil soup, which is also one of my favorites. But this one is great. It's hearty. It's like we were talking about, trying to figure out how do we get more veggies into our diet, right? That's always a thing for people. So we started with smoothies last week, but this is a great one because it's pretty much all veggies. And one of the things that I'm going to be adding, there's usually a pasta in it, but today we're going to be using this veggie pasta. I don't know if any of you have seen this or cooked with something similar. This is one from HEB. You could find it pretty much in any grocery store, but this one has, it's a macaroni, like a ridged elbow macaroni, but it is packed full of, it looks like carrot, a couple other different veggies, corn, squash, and so that's another way that you can incorporate some veggies in addition to the raw ones that we're going to use today. Yeah. Oh, okay. So there's a spaghetti version. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff out there on the market, which is really nice to see. Sometimes you can see, like, I'm a fan of the veggie rotini. That's because all the beautiful colors if you're making like a pasta salad. But this one is great. Just even if you wanted to do a mac and cheese with it, it would be great. So that's what we're using today. I've cooked it ahead of time just because we have this great Instapot that we're using today. And I've got our carrots cooking a little bit ahead because I want to make sure that they're not crunchy by the time we finish class today. I'm going to just turn that down a tad, if I can. There we go. Okay, so we're going to make our minestrone today. We've got a couple other ingredients that I want to add here. We're going to do some onion, just regular yellow onion, some celery, a little bit of zucchini. You could use yellow squash too if you wanted to, if you couldn't find zucchini, but that's pretty available pretty much all time of the year. And then carrots. So like I said, I wanted to make sure that those carrots get cooked through by the time we finish up the class. So I've got a couple started. So basically 4 carrots, 2 zucchini, about 4 stalks of celery, and 1 giant onion. So I'm going to start with chopping our onion. I always like to just take, bless you, I always like to just take the top off. Cedar season, yes. Pass the Kleenex. I know, I did my Flonase this morning. It's coming. It's a beautiful day. It's sunny, but it is super cold out there. So I always know days like that can be a little deceptive because you think everything's great and then the allergies hit. So be careful, be mindful of the beautiful sunny days here. They come with side effects. All right. So this minestrone soup, as you might have noticed, also has some herbs in it. Pretty simple. I like to keep things simple. You could use fresh ones. I have some really nice rosemary right now growing in a pot outside. I think I did, when I took the picture for this, put a little bit of that on top. That's the green you see in the picture. But today, what we're using is just an Italian herb that has all of those things mixed in. So it's like oregano, rosemary, thyme. There might be a little sage in there, but that comes just like that. And so we're going to do just about 2 tablespoons of that. So for my onion, hopefully you all can see, sorry, I've got all my ingredients kind of packed here, but I just cut it in half, took the peel off, and then as you all know, I like to do a couple of cuts along the side here, and then just follow some of the ridges here of the long way, and that's how I get my dice. And so I just kind of cut it in half. We're going to use this whole onion. You could use any onion that you like. Red onion would work really well in here too. When I think of minestrone, I think of Mediterranean, kind of Italian flavors, right? So red onion would be great. Shallot also would be good. But for today, we're going to keep it easy, keep it simple, and just use this yellow onion. And I'm going to make some room for myself here because this is a pretty big onion. But we're gonna just chop that. And so it is soup season, or at least today it's, or cold enough for soup. Are there any other soups that you all like to make this time of year?
Tortilla soup.
Oh, tortilla soup, yes. Butternut squash is another good one. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, and chili.
Chili, yes, yes. I debated. I actually had a tortilla soup recipe I was thinking about doing for you all. But the quantities were a little too large, so I need to rework that recipe. So maybe in the next series we'll add another soup, and that might be it. But that is a good one. And butternut squash is always a favorite. Okay.
You could just learn the recipe itself next week.
I could. I felt like there was too much liquid in it. Like if you wanted to make a ton of it and put it in the freezer, it would be a good recipe for that. But there was more liquid to like veggies and protein. So I was like, I think I need to rework that one a little bit. So it's all good though. You guys have some delicious recipes to try this time around. And then we'll also be doing some salads at the end of this series. Okay, so I'll pop my onions in here. Woo! Let me give this a little stir. Oh, yep, caramelization going there on my carrots. It's all good though. It's gonna taste delicious with this onion. Okie dokie. All right. And then, like I mentioned, oh, we got one more carrot. Let me peel that. We want to get all those veggies in there. As you all know, I'm always a fan of good tools in the kitchen. This is one of my favorites, which is this OXO peeler. Because it has the horizontal blade and it's super sharp. So if you have one of those or something similar, always be careful when you're peeling because they are pretty sharp. So I usually just kind of cut this in half to make my life a little easier. And just do a couple of dices like that, sort of half moon shape. Take off the top. And this one's a little big, and I kind of want them all to be about the same size. So I just cut those in half. And voila. So we're going to add that in, like so. A couple other things that are going to go in are celery. So we had celery in our smoothie last week. It's one of those things that's great because it's got that awesome water content, but it's got a great flavor too. So we're going to do 4 of these. I just take off the bottom here. Save that for your stock. If you're making veggie stock, today I have it in the box. We're going to just use 2 quarts of that. And this I just kind of cut just like this, nothing fancy there either. Just because I'm weird like that. I like everything to be uniform. I usually will save that, like throw it in a bag and save it for my stock. But you can use it, yeah. Just like this little white piece, I would normally not use that, but it's soup, so we're going to throw that in. Nah. That's just me. And I'm just weird like that, so. Yeah, many years of just everything needing to be a certain shape, I guess. Force of habits. All right. Okay. Whoop. So in goes the celery. And then the last thing. So I always joke about how I forgot something. And I'm running on a couple of hours of sleep, so kind of on fumes this morning. But I almost forgot my knife. I remembered this morning, but I forgot a spoon, and luckily we had some here. So saved today. Okay, and then our zucchini. The couple of things that, in addition to the veggies, like I mentioned, we have the veggie pasta. We also have some kidney beans, which, I feel like kidney beans don't get a lot of love. I feel like some people either love them or hate them. I am a fan of them. I think they taste great. You can get them canned. You could, cook your own from dry, but they're a great source of protein, and we like that. So, and fiber, obviously, along with these veggies. So what I'm going to do right now is actually add this, because I like to also cook by sound. And even though this is on medium, it still sounds a little too high for me. So we're going to quiet that just so also it doesn't pick up too much on our mic and they can actually hear me. But it's 2 quarts of vegetable broth that we're adding. And then we're also going to add a little bit of water, 2 cups of that. So there we go. All right. And as you noticed, I'm using a lot of things that are easy, right? So I'm using some canned things, I'm using some box things, pasta, quick and easy, but then some fresh things. And I think that's also the key. When you're cooking something, a recipe like this, it is pretty much homemade, but you're taking a couple of things that you don't have to take the time to cook. Like you could cook your own beans if you like to do that. That's great. I would recommend if you are to use them right away, because beans have some starches in them. So if you let them sit too long in your fridge, that could potentially cause like the bacteria to grow. And, if you eat that, you could get sick. So I tend to use a lot of canned beans. If I have time, I might make beans, cook them from dry and make like dips and things like that. But usually I'll use canned beans. So I like this recipe because it kind of mixes a bunch of different things, but it still feels pretty much homemade from scratch because it is. Okay, so I'm going to add in same thing. These are kind of wide pieces, so I just cut them in half and then do sort of this half moon cut on them. And if you wanted to change it up a little bit, you could do maybe one of these zucchini and one yellow squash. That would be really pretty. I always say we eat with our eyes, right? So having all the different colors is nice. And we're talking about vitamins again today. So talking about, what vitamins we get from foods. I did actually, we had the question last week about drinking a lot of water when you're consuming B vitamins. So somebody asked that last week. I don't know if she's back today. Okay. Well, I want to answer that because it was a good question. So when you're consuming a vitamin, especially if it's like a supplement and it's a water soluble one, like a vitamin B, you do want to consume at least a full glass of water with it, because what I read about was essentially you want to make sure that you're absorbing it well, and that your kidneys aren't working so hard to excrete it, right? Because if they're water soluble, it's going to eventually, what your body doesn't need is going to get excreted in your urine. But you also don't want to overtax your kidneys, and so having that water to help it absorb and do what it needs to is a little more gentler on your system. So great question for the person who asked, and now we have an answer. So we're going to put that in there. The things that I might add a little bit later, just because the beans are already cooked and I don't want them to get too mushy. So we'll add those towards the end. And then the pasta's already cooked, so it just needs to warm through. So we'll add that at the end. But the other thing I forgot to add, which I like to do kind of in order, is the garlic and onion. But that's okay, because it's all going in the same pot. So we'll get there. Bear with me, ladies. We'll get there. Okay. Let's see. My cutting board isn't large enough today. All right. What did I forget? Anything else? You guys notice I'm forgetting one ingredient.
Oh, we haven't done the garlic yet.
Well, the garlic, yes. Well, we'll get to the herbs, but there's one other key ingredient that adds some more color and some more, actually, that's right. That's right. So again, we're going to use canned tomatoes. You could use fresh. That would be fine. If you had in the summer and you wanted to make this, that would be great, because zucchini, if people grow this in their garden, is always plentiful, right? It's one of those things that just kind of takes over. So this would be a nice light summer soup if you wanted to do that. But we're using crushed tomatoes, and so just a full can of that. So I'm going to pop that in too, just before I add my garlic. and our herbs. It was 2 tablespoons of oil that I started with, and I'm just using olive oil today, kind of keeping with our Mediterranean theme here. So we've got a nice healthy fat in there that we're going to add in. Oop. Good thing the camera's not close up, otherwise we'd have to put the splash guard on it. Okay, so that's all coming together. That looks great, smells great. Okay, garlic. I've got 4 nice cloves of garlic here. This is one of my favorites. I don't know what it's actually called, but it has this beautiful purple skin on it. I feel like this garlic has a lot more flavor, and it's a lot easier to peel because this is not one of my favorite things to do, as you all know. I complain about it every time I do it. But see how it just easily comes off. I love that. Doesn't stick to your fingers. A little trickier to do with gloves on. But I feel like the cloves are always nicer. You know, see, you have this beautiful, nice clove of garlic. This is the kind where, have you all ever seen a recipe where you just kind of submerge whole cloves of this in a little bit of olive oil, just enough to cover it, and put it on the heat in a little saucepan, just on real low, and just simmer it. And then you can, I did that actually over the holidays. And I pureed the soft garlic. I separated it. So I had garlic oil to use in cooking, but then I had the nice soft cloves to mush up and put into my mashed potatoes. So that's a trick for you too. Because I love mashed potatoes, especially during the holidays, but I felt like when I made them for Thanksgiving, something was missing. And so when I did it again for Christmas, I was like, aha, I know what's missing, the garlic. But that is an easy way to do it. Yeah, you just want to make sure that you have enough oil to cover all the cloves, and then just simmer it. We used to do that quite a bit when I worked in the restaurant, and we would have buckets of this beautiful, almost like caramelized garlic paste. And anytime we had these catering events and we had mashed potatoes all the time on the menu, we would add just a good old scoop of that to the mashed potatoes. And our mashed potatoes were great because they had heavy cream and the real butter, and those were some mashed potatoes. Yeah. If you want to be decadent, that's the way to go. I always say, if you could have your last meal, what would it be? I'm like, mashed potatoes would certainly be a front runner, especially some like that. Yeah. Okay, I got one more to peel. We're getting there. Look at this, how gorgeous that purple is. It's almost as purple as these kidney beans. I love that. Today, what are we talking about? I think we're moving on to, in the alphabet of vitamins, we did A and B, and so we're doing the good ones. They're all good, but vitamins C and D, I believe, is what we're talking about today. So we'll have some good discussion for that. And then I've been working ahead, and in the couple of weeks that we have remaining, we'll be talking about some of these vitamins again, but some pairings of how to really maximize the nutrients in them by pairing them with other things like minerals or other vitamins. So that's something I think is always a nice refresher. Have you all seen the new food pyramid guidelines that have come out? Okay, well, there's a lot of discussion about that right now. Keep reading is my suggestion. Keep reading, and some of it is. I think it's funny because food pyramids have been around since forever, right? It's always advice based on the science and all of this, whatnot. But I often wonder, even as somebody who's taught nutrition, how often people are paying attention to that. So when people say, oh, it's, they're having all these mixed reactions right now about it, I think, well, if most people are kind of doing what feels good in their body, which hopefully is generally like eating real food, fruits and vegetables like we're doing today. Like, I think that's kind of the rule of thumb. Like, just make sure you're eating some really good food and whatever your budget can afford, right? Like, make sure that in addition to the food that you're consuming, that you're staying active, you're moving. Like, just because somebody paints a picture of something doesn't mean that that's the end all be all, and that is, words to live by. There's some definite science in that, but even like I work for the Heart Association, and they're always saying, be careful of saturated fats. And when we have a lot of proteins, animal proteins in particular, those can be okay for some people. But if some people have heart disease, that may not be something that's recommended by your physician. So take it all with a grain of salt. And be informed, I think, is the number one thing. Make sure what you're reading is based in the science and facts. There's a lot of discussion out there by people who don't have a lot of that background or knowledge, and they're just kind of, trying to infuse sort of the scare tactics of don't eat this and don't eat that. And I've always been kind of a proponent of you should never label food as good or bad either, especially when you're working with people who, like I always worked with children, and you don't want to introduce that kind of relationship for food with kids and for anybody too who's learning to eat new foods. Like, make sure that people have an opportunity to make their own choices and their own decisions about food. So give them all the facts, encourage them to read up and learn more and to try more. That's kind of my philosophy. I think that's Raquel's TED Talk for today. That's Raquel's TED Talk. Okay. I used to say that with my coworker, and now she's no longer there to listen to my TED Talk, so they have to come out somewhere. So you ladies were lucky this morning. Okay, I'm going to crank this up again to high. There we go, and start, and put our lid on. That's good. Okay, so we are rolling. We got everything. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot our spices. Dang it. Let's add that too. One more thing. And then we'll move on to our nutrition. So 2 tablespoons of our mixed Italian herbs. I was like, something looks a little off here. Oh, thank you. I'm telling you, a few hours of sleep. This is what happens to Raquel. And no coffee. No coffee. Okay. I know I shouldn't be drinking coffee, but this week has required it. Starting back up after being on break for 2 weeks, and it's rough. It's rough. But we're gonna make it happen. Okay, here we go. Oh, and it all fits in the pot. Awesome. Give that a quick stir so we mix everything up. Okay, soup's coming. All right. Rosie, this lid. We had it on last time. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're on, we're high, we're rolling. Alrighty, ladies. So while that is coming together, you basically just want to bring it up to heat, bring it up to a nice little rolling boil, and then put it down to about medium. Let it simmer just until all the flavors come together. All the veggies that are in there are tender, not crisp anymore, but they still have that beautiful color. And then we'll add in at the end our beans and our pasta. So while that's hanging out, let's chat nutrition. Okay, so week 2, super excited. This is good timing also because we're still technically in winter, although today finally feels like it. It's what, January, what's today? January 10th? And we finally got like 45 degrees, so yay. I love this one. I always think about like Wonder Twins Activate, right? So I think these are 2 of the probably more popular vitamins that you think about. We can get them in foods, but obviously people, especially during the winter season, to just kind of strengthen our immunity, to ward off flu, cold, all of that stuff. We think about vitamin C and D. So these are our protector vitamins. They both support our immune system. Vitamin C is great when it comes to supporting our white blood cells, and then vitamin D helps the body respond to viruses. So these are really key vitamins, but I love that we can always find these in sources of food. And as we were talking about last week, this is something where I always encourage people, go with food first, unless your doctor has recommended and has taken some labs and said you're really deficient in something, which sometimes is the case. I've been deficient in vitamin D before and I felt lousy, and it's like, oh, you need a boost of that, so we're going to give you some pills to take, and then you monitor that, and usually when you can do food after that, you're cool. But anyway, start with food, and we're going to talk a little bit about where you can find that. But let's see. Both of these vitamins, C and D, can help keep us resilient during cold and flu season, which is right about now until, I don't know, maybe March. If anybody has not gotten their flu shot yet, pneumonia shots, all that kind of stuff, take care of that. And vitamin C is an antioxidant as well. And vitamin D helps to fight inflammation, which we often talk about. Our bodies are so good at telling us when something is off. And inflammation is one of those key indicators of just something being too much in the body. And so we have to regulate, right? So vitamin D helps to kind of keep the inflammation in check. And so both of them are protecting our cells. And that's really something that's critical anytime, especially for you all as you're fighting, disease, chronic illness. We want to make sure that we're keeping our bodies in check. And so these two are really key vitamins to keep in mind. So a little bit more on vitamin C. It's good for immunity, protecting against illness. It is an antioxidant that neutralizes free radicals that can contribute to chronic disease. It supports collagen production, and it's important for wound healing. And then it also reduces oxidative stress to protect the brain and heart health, to protect the brain and also provide heart health. And so we often kind of forget about that. But vitamin C, I mean, we think of oranges, right? Citrus, orange juice, taking pills for that. But we want to make sure that we know, like, it has a lot of these other beneficial health properties. So if you aren't already consuming it in your food, think about taking a supplement if you need that. Some of the foods, speaking of food, where you can find it, people typically often think citrus, right? So oranges, lemons, all of that. Kiwi is another great source. Also, bell peppers and tomatoes. So we have today the tomatoes in this recipe. Strawberries are a great source of vitamin C. And I always like to debunk people are always thinking fruit, but it can also be found in vegetables, and that sometimes people aren't aware of. And so my favorite one is broccoli. It's green. It's not something that people associate with vitamin C, but there is plenty in there. Potatoes and Brussels sprouts. So think of like the brassica family. Broccoli and Brussels sprouts are part of that. And then think of your dark leafy greens. So things like kale and mustard greens. Has anybody here cooked with mustard greens before?
Nice saute them and brown with olive oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I often say, don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Let the food kind of shine through. People will always say your food always looks so great, and I'm like, it's not me. It's the food doing what it needs to be doing. Like the food, even if you have limited resources where you go grocery shopping and you don't have all the beautiful varieties or whatever, you can still make and have food look delicious if you know a few simple things in the kitchen. And so that's always been also my 2 cents of like, learn the basics, learn a recipe like this where you can impress your friends and family. But you're bringing in some key elements, even if you take some little shortcuts with like, packaged pasta or canned ingredients. If you all know, you've probably heard this spiel, anything that's canned, especially like fruits and vegetables, are basically canned at their peak. And so they are at their most flavorful. I always recommend too, if you're curious and you want to just have some fun, try all the different brands of one ingredient. So I'll do that from time to time, like with different tomatoes. I'll try all the different brands that are available. And sometimes I'll find that the store brand is actually the best one, and it's also the cheapest one versus kind of the higher name brand. But sometimes it's the opposite. So every once in a while, if you want to change things up, that's an easy way to try that in your cooking as well. Okay, so vitamin D, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's a nutrient and a hormone that your body makes from sunlight. So this is the sunshine vitamin, right? So you can hear we're lucky that we have vitamin D pretty much all throughout the year. We do have some gloomy gray days here from time to time, but generally it's nice because we have a lot of sunshine. But even with that, people can still be deficient in vitamin D. And so you might have to take a supplement for that. It helps us absorb calcium, which we need for strong bones and teeth. It also supports our muscle and nerve function, which is really critical. And it has been shown it may slow cancer cell growth. And so vitamin D is, again, one of those protector vitamins. We want to make sure that we've got enough of that in our system and that we're getting it either from food or some kind of supplement if we're deficient in that. It can be found in things like fatty fish. So think salmon, tuna, mackerel. Has anybody here tried mackerel before? It's so good. It's one of those fish that you can find it fresh. You can easily like get a whole one. They're usually relatively inexpensive. You could just grill it, like put it roasted in the oven with some lemon and fresh herbs, a little oil, or you can also get it canned. Trader Joe's, you know how much I love the Trader Joe's, but they used to sell, I don't know if they still have it, this beautiful canned, I don't know if it was smoked or if it was just plain, but it was in oil and it was delicious. And so I would swap it out sometimes for just tuna and just do everything with it, salads, make it into like a mackerel salad. But it's one of those, if you can find it and you love the taste of it, I would say it's fishy, but if you like tuna, you'll like mackerel. So if you're interested in trying something different and it's a great source of vitamin D, check that out. Cod liver oil, that typically is like a supplement, a vitamin. Egg yolks, that's a pretty easy one if you're a fan of having eggs for breakfast or hard boiled eggs or something. And then fortified milk and plant-based beverages and cereal. So you might see on the box of cereal or any other whole grain, it's fortified with these vitamins. That's what that means. It's been added. That's why they also often talk about like whole grains being better than just kind of white breads and things like that, white grains, white rice, because typically it has all of those things in it. With the white, they have to fortify it with all these additional vitamins. Like taking it's crazy, but people have a preference sometimes, and they prefer the white versus the whole wheat. But if you can get it from its original source and it has everything in it versus having it stripped, then putting it back in. But either way, you can find your vitamins in that case. So, any questions on any of this? Yeah.
Do you ever use tomato paste or tomato sauce in it?
In
Except when you have fresh tomatoes or when you do canned?
For like a soup like this, I love to do tomato paste. I thought about it actually in the recipe for next week, but I didn't have any on hand, and it was too late. I had already pulled it together. I'm like, oh, this will be great. And it was one less ingredient. I was like, one less thing you have to buy. But I love tomato paste because it has more concentrated tomato flavor and it helps to thicken things. So when I'm doing things like if I'm braising meats, I may saute and sear some onions and maybe sear the meat and then add in a little tomato paste just to kind of bring some concentrated flavors. If you've heard of the phrase umami, it's kind of like it's that flavor of things that's kind of the salty, savory, rich flavor, and you can find it in tomato paste, Parmesan cheese, things like soy sauce, but it has kind of that deep, rich flavor that you can impart to food and just kind of help layer some more of that richness in the food. So yeah, you could make your own. Definitely, you have to kind of cook down the tomato quite a bit to get to that. Some people, if you've got the time, definitely give it a try. But I love, just because I feel like if you go to the grocery store, most tomatoes aren't going to taste like tomatoes. If you've ever had a garden, or if you've been able to have tomatoes that taste like an actual tomato, where you almost taste like the vine, right? Like it has that freshness about it, and that, I don't know, that green earthiness of the vine. Like that's what I think of when I have a really good tomato. So when I'm doing even like a tomato soup recipe, I'm kind of trying to put some flavor back into it. So I might char those tomatoes or roast them, broil them or something, just to kind of give them more flavor, bring out some of the sweetness that might be in there. I used to work with a produce company, and they would talk about how these tomatoes had to be picked at a certain time where they were basically like softballs, like they were really firm. They didn't have a lot of flavor, but because of all the transport of like taking them to all these places, the restaurants, the grocery stores, like they had to hold up, right? And they were assuming that people would take them and just continue to ripen them. But chances are when you go to the store, you might see some, kind of depending on the season, that look more like tomatoes. They've got that beautiful color. Next time you go to the store, take a look at how many varieties you see, from the giant like beefsteak tomatoes to those beautiful vine ripe ones, or even just the multitude of cherry, grape tomatoes, all those varieties. And that's another thing. Give that a try. Like, see which ones taste more closer to like the sweetness of an actual good grown tomato. I was actually, we have a recipe here in the series that'll use cherry tomatoes, and I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised that they were actually sweet. So I was happy about that. But Yeah, typically I'm always finding that I have to add more flavor when I buy tomatoes, unless I grow them myself, which I haven't done in years because it's super hot here in Texas, and tomatoes are a little trickier to do here unless you can like fully outfit like a garden or a greenhouse or something. The heat you need heat and sunshine, but our summers are crazy. So okay, well I'm gonna check this soup really quick, see how we're doing. Oh, let's see. I don't think I have to vent it. Oh. I didn't set it on that, but it formed a nice tight seal, so. It's starting to smell a little like, right? I think we should be good, right? Now it won't let me open it.
Yeah, it's still under that pressure.
That's
right?
weird because I didn't set
There
it for
might
that.
be
Maybe
a
I did.
little,
Here, I don't want to. Let me grab this.
yeah.
I didn't set it for the pressure, but maybe it did its own thing, which is okay. The carrots should be done by now. All right. Well, we're going to let that kind of come together here. I'm going to add this in and just give it a few minutes to kind of warm up, and then we'll give it a try. So that is pretty much it. I'm not sure where we're at time, but we can hang out for a little bit, make sure our soup is good to go. And then next week, we'll be doing lentil soup with mushrooms. Great recipe. Yeah, so we've got, hopefully the weather will be soup weather again, and we'll enjoy that. But otherwise, thank you guys for being here today, and we'll see you next week.